Hello, my name is Matthew Lakier, and I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Waterloo. I'll be sharing work that I did with my PhD advisor, Dan Vogel, called Digital Knick-Knacks, Standalone Audiovisual Digital Possessions or Embellishments in Digital Environments. Historical user interfaces often incorporated playful and creative features, such as anthropomorphic agents, animated mouse cursors, virtual pets, and playful desk accessories. In contrast, modern interfaces have largely moved away from this, instead focusing on looking sleek, minimalistic, and utilitarian. But I feel that with this transition, interfaces have maybe lost some personality and hampered our self-expressiveness. Of course, there are exceptions, such as a virtual pet app for the iOS Dynamic Island, or animated animals that can be added in Google Colab. But exceptions like these don't come up very often. So how can we recontextualize some of the playful aspects from historical software into modern interfaces today? We propose the concept of digital knick-knacks as a way of setting a scope for study. We define digital knick-knacks as standalone audiovisual digital possessions or embellishments contained within non-game digital environments. By contained, we mean that digital knick-knacks are on display in the digital environment in a way that the user can continually choose to interact with. This is different from conventional digital possessions, like music files or picture files, which are usually stored away. Our investigation involved three main steps. First, we constructed a taxonomy of digital knick-knacks based on past theories and a brainstorming session. Next, we implemented 3 digital knick-knack exemplar templates. And then, we used the exemplars as a form of technology probe in a diary study. We created the taxonomy of digital knick-knacks to understand the range of different possible digital knick-knack designs. In a first step, we synthesized a selection of influential works from 4 related areas: personalization motivations, such as exploration of options or emotional expression; classes of meaning of physical possessions in the home, such as style or association with memories; consumption behavior rituals, such as gift exchange and showing off possessions; and slightly more abstract work around the notion of the extended self, with concepts like dematerialization and representation of different selves. Next, we conducted a brainstorming session with 9 HCI researchers pursuing master's or PhD degrees at our institution. Using 7 sets of categories and dimensions from the 4 theory areas as inspiration, a total of 108 digital knick-knack ideas were generated. We categorized the generated ideas into 11 digital knick-knack types. Some examples of these are a virtual assistant or pet, like a cat that chases something on the screen; an embedded game, like a minigame or game-like toy that can be triggered by external actions; and a meaningful media display, which displays photos, quotes, or other things of value to users. For example, a display of photos from the same time in past years. To study digital knick-knacks more closely, we created a set of design templates to prototype. For our designs, we focused in on designs that were playful and non-utilitarian, and also personal. We felt that this personal aspect would be important in line with ideas like the IKEA effect, where people place greater value in self-made things. We created 3 digital knick-knack templates. The first is a virtual pet in the form of an animated monster character, based on the virtual assistant or pet type. The second is a picture frame that can display user-selected images, based on the meaningful media display type. And the last is a sound machine that plays an ambient background sound of choice and also plays a subtle animation to go with it, and it's based on the soundscape type. For the diary study, we had 10 participants. In a brief initial setup session, participants configured the design of one of the template digital knick-knacks of their choice. They then installed it on their computer and used it for 10 days, completing daily diary entries. At the end of the study, we interviewed participants to get a better understanding of their perspectives. For the setup session, we made a custom interface that allowed participants to choose between the template digital knickknacks and modify the contents and aspects of their design. In terms of some usage statistics, there was large variability in digital knick-knack use. On average, digital knick-knacks were visible about 25% of the time, but this was with a large standard deviation. Interactions with digital knick-knacks each day were mostly brief, but some interactions were prolonged. And most often, digital knick-knacks were placed in a corner of the monitor or on a separate monitor if the participant had a multi-screen layout. In terms of qualitative results, we constructed 5 themes based on participant diary entries and interviews. I'll focus on 2 of them here. The first is bringing joy and positivity. Participants felt that digital knick-knacks supported a positive mood because of their style, design, interactivity, association with memories, ability to act as a companion, and so on. Some participants felt that their digital knick-knacks supported their mental health, for example, by being soothing, helping to manage stress, or helping with loneliness and sadness. Digital knick-knacks also led to emergent joyful social interactions, for example, making family members smile when passing by, or acting as a conversation starter. Another theme is being within eye's reach. This refers to how digital knick-knacks are right there to be looked at and interacted with. Unlike conventional digital possessions, digital knick-knacks have a notion of place, and participants associated their digital knick-knacks with particular locations, like their office space. Digital knick-knacks also have a tactileness that participants compared to physical possessions, like figurines or fidget spinners. Participants often used interactions with their digital knick-knacks as a break when working or switching tasks, or as substitutes for less desirable distractions like doom scrolling. In the paper, we also reflect on some aspects and implications of digital knick-knacks, such as their self-made nature, their use in other contexts, social considerations, and considerations for work and play contexts. I'll focus on 2 of these again. The self-made aspect of our digital knick-knacks affected how they were perceived. This aspect was important to participants because it increased the digital knick-knacks' perceived value. But participants had varying preferences for levels of control over what they'd want for the design. For example, some participants appreciated the ability to select from pre-made options that went well together, whereas other participants wanted more granular control over design elements. There's also a potential for digital knick-knacks to include aspects that change over time, like trivia or Easter eggs. But there's a tension between being personally meaningful and adapting to new content, because too much change over time might damage the perception that a digital knick-knack is something personal. In any case, we see self-made digital knick-knacks as one way that we might be able to foster a digital culture that emphasizes craft and making. When designing digital knick-knacks, the level of presence is an important consideration in work contexts. If a digital knick-knack is too hidden, like a tiny static icon in a taskbar, it might be forgotten. But if it's too flashy, it can become a distraction. Another consideration is how to support playfulness. Past work has shown that play can provide joy, support agency, and facilitate social connection, even in serious contexts like office environments. Digital knick-knacks can be designed for ambiguity to support curiosity and exploration. Allowing for flexible ways of interpreting a digital knick-knack could enable it to support emergent functionality, for example, to cover up less relevant information in a user interface. If you're interested in a deeper look at some of these ideas, please take a look at our paper. In summary, we developed a taxonomy of digital knick-knacks and investigated 3 exemplar designs in a 10-day diary study. Digital knick-knacks can bring joy to users, and incorporating the users into the design can help digital knick-knacks support a personal connection. Thanks for your attention, and please feel free to contact me if you've got any questions.